What is going on, everyone? What is going on? It is that time again for another episode of ColumbusBlack.com. We are here for our Wellness Wednesday, right? So this is our Wellness Wednesday. As you all know, we bring it to you all. This is our lunch and learn, and we're excited today. You all know that this is a historic moment that's approaching us as we approach Juneteenth this upcoming weekend. And I'm excited because we want you all to be able to sit back, listen, have a little bit of lunch, and learn a couple of things. Now, the way that we're going to make that happen is I have two special guests that are on the show with me today. And they're going to be dropping some gems, as you all know. So I'm dropping my disclaimer right now. You all know when I start going like this, that means that gems are being dropped, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get going. I'm about to bring on screen in a moment who our special guest is, and then I think you all will completely understand why we're going to have some gems dropped today. But with that being said, what I want to do is make sure for those that are joining us for the first time that don't know who we are, what we do, welcome to ColumbusBlack.com's Wellness Wednesday. Columbus Black has been around for about 16 years now. We're an online platform connecting the Black community to commerce and to culture. And we're going to be talking about some culture today, all right? Obviously tied to commerce as well. And with that, we're an omni-channel platform, so great for advertising, getting your information out there, getting your business out there through our website, through our email blast, text blast, social media, all those things. And now, not only do we do virtual events, but soon, guess what? Live events, because we're coming out of the pandemic, right? So I think I'm excited. I hope y'all are excited about that to be able to get out and about again. But with that being said, there's a series that we started earlier this year, and it's called ColumbusBlack.com's Wellness Wednesday Lunch and Learn. And the reason why we created that is because we understand that for our community, especially, that our wellness, right, whether physical, whether mental, right, spiritual, we know that we have got to do a better job of balancing those things, especially with all the challenges that exist around us. So with that being said, one of the things that we were able to do was engage with GCAC and Columbus Makes Art, and they became a sponsor for our Wellness Wednesday. And the reason why is because we understand that art balances us, right? I don't care what kind of art or form of art you love, it balances you. Is when it brings out the greatest joy and happiness within you. So with that being said, I'm going to actually add on screen, right? So now you all can see that we actually have Dr. Mark Lomax with us today. And we have another special guest, Dr. Ted McDaniel, that should be joining us as well. But what I want to say is you all are in for a nice little treat that's leading up to a bigger treat. Okay, so this is the precursor to what's actually going to take place on Friday. So I'm excited about having Dr. Lomax on the show and Dr. McDaniel with us as well. So with that being said, I'm looking for you all to really enjoy the opportunity. Once again, as I said earlier, sit back, relax. It's a lunch and learn. You're supposed to be eating, right? Relaxing for a little bit, taking a breath, deep breath, and now it's time to learn a couple of things. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lomax. I call him Mark because he's a close friend of mine, but I want him to introduce himself because I would do a disservice if I tried. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're going to start to jump into a few questions so you all can understand what they actually have coming up this week as well. So Mark, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background for those that may not know? And obviously there's many who do, but we want to make sure everybody understands who you are, what you do.
Solid. Thanks, big bro. I appreciate you having me on today to talk about Juneteenth and Black music. I am Dr. Mark Lomax. I am a Columbus-based musician, entrepreneur, artist, activist, composer, and my work really revolves around using the stories of Africa and its diaspora as source material for the music and educational products and other media projects that we do, film and the like. And the whole point is to tell our story, because if you don't know who you have been, you can't know who you are, and you don't know where you're going. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
There it goes. Y'all see the gems starting to come out already. So that's good stuff. So Mark, tell us, do me a favor, give us a little bit of background. So you talk about music, obviously an educator as well, and very entrenched in the industry. And as we think about Black music, right, Black Music Month and the history of Juneteenth right now, but give us a little bit more, like, how did you get started with music? And when did that, like, it clicked for you? Because I know it was very young, but everybody hadn't heard this story yet. But give us a short, brief version of that, and then we'll start to lead into what we have going on right now.
Yeah. So I started uh, when I was born. Really, my mother was the director of the gospel choir at Virginia Tech in
Mm,
Blacksburg, Virginia, and so I started in music in utero, literally, and they said I would be able to sing some of the notes the sopranos would sing as I was in my little car seat. In the 70s, they didn't have real car seats like we have now. So they just had me
right.
in that little place to keep me as safe as possible. And I would sing the notes that the sopranos were trying to sing or could sing or couldn't sing. And then by 2, I was playing drums as good as 10-year, so as well as 10-year-olds were
Mm,
when we had moved to Columbus. And so I started playing in church early, became professional at 6, started touring at 14, put out my first record at 19, and now at 42, I've released about 45 albums, 12 of which are part of a project we call 400 An African Epic, which is a 12 album, 8.5 hour cycle that tells the story of pre-colonial African history, the
mm,
Ma'afa 1619 to the present, and projects an artistic view of the future when Africa and its diaspora and humanity as a whole is healthy, happy, and whole. So we've got the album cycle, we've got a curriculum guide that helps you kind of think through and learn, study the history from books and other resources, and we have a documentary that tells that story as well. So I never really chose music. It
yeah.
just became, it's the path that the ancestors have laid out for me, and I'm happy to be obedient, you know.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So in a nutshell, y'all, he didn't choose music. Music chose him as a part of the destiny that was supposed to happen. This is what you're supposed to be contributing to our world, and we appreciate you for that and the depth of what
Ashe.
you're actually bringing to us as well. So, well, good stuff. So that actually leads us up to today, right, and where we are, and obviously with the focus around Juneteenth and what's going on. So we have a couple of questions that were presented to us. We want to ask you and see what perspectives you have. But in regards to Juneteenth, like, how did Juneteenth actually affect music, right? Like, what is
Okay.
the relation between Juneteenth and music and Black music, and what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so there has been until recently this myth
Mm,
that Africans who were enslaved came to the Americas culturally naked, right? That we had no history, we had no system of writing, we had no sense of the sciences, we had no arts. And that's absolutely false. We created those things. We created all of those things. Go try to stick a credit card in between those stones that make up the Great Pyramids, and you'll find the credit card will bend and there's no mortar, right?
mm,
We knew science and we knew mathematics and we knew architecture at such a high level that that stuff is still standing when many of the ruins in Europe are exactly that, in ruins, right?
mm,
So we brought all of that with us, and music was a part of that cultural package.
okay.
And music in traditional African context was not music as we know it. It wasn't art for the sake of art. It was functional. It accompanied some act of human beingness, right? Music was present when kids were born. Music was present when elders died or transitioned into the ancestral realm. Music was present when we hunted. Music was present when we farmed. It was present for everything, right? So we brought that with us, and music continued to function, though the function shifted. As Mary Baraka says, we became less African and more blues people or Black,
Mm,
right? That
okay.
institution of slavery completely shifted who we were at a psychological level and how we identified ourselves, because we had been cut off from our people, our land, and our gods, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the function of music during slavery was really, threefold. One, it was a means of communication.
Mhm.
It was a means of expressing our humanity. And as important, it was a means of reminding ourselves that we were human in the midst of an inhumane situation.
Mm. Oof. Drop.
As time went on And 1863 to 1865, Emancipation Proclamation slowly worked its way across the country, and that's why we celebrate Juneteenth, because 2 years later, after enslaved Africans were free, all of a sudden, our ancestors in Texas got the word, because, the internet was a horse.
Right.
So, Union soldiers roll into Texas and say, "Hey, y'all free now," and everybody's like, "Really?"
2 years
All right,
later.
cool. Right. And so, because our political situation changed and our status shifted from chattel property to not quite citizens, but more human than horse, right? Our music also shifted. And so the music had to tell a different story, because we had turned the page and entered a different chapter. And that's the function our music has always played in the history of Africans in America. It always tells our story. It always reflects our humanity. It reflects how we're thinking about the world and how we're engaging the world. That's why they said in the 80s and 90s, hip hop was the CNN of the Black community, because before we had the internet and all that kind of stuff, we were hearing from rappers what was going on out in California, what was going on in New York. And then as the South rose, later in the 90s, what was going on in the South, the music has always represented a form of communication and expression of who we were.
Wow. Heavy. Breaking it down. Listen, I told y'all, gems were going to get dropped, and guess what? They are being dropped. So thank you for breaking that down for us. One of the things that we have the pleasure and honor of doing now is we actually have Dr. Ted McDaniel with us as well. So while I want to thank Mark for opening things up, we obviously want to welcome and
defer to the elder.
Let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself, his background, and all those great things. And then obviously we want to definitely get his perspective on some of the same things in regards to Juneteenth and its effect on music. So Dr. McDaniel, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're honored and pleasure.
Well, thank you. Let me apologize here. Thank you, Mark, for sending me that note. I was actually, there's some work going on in the house, and I've got some workers over here. So I was in a totally different frame of mind and everything.
Yeah, that happens.
yeah. Sorry about that. But well, I'm Dr. Ted McDaniel. I'm a native of Memphis, Tennessee. So I've been around music, I guess, from the time I was born. I literally was born on Bill Street.
Wow.
And,
wow.
Just grew up in that very strong music culture anchored by the blues. And the blues as a tradition, let me just make this connection from the start, is a result of the freedom of expression. Oftentimes when we think about emancipation with respect to the experience of slaves, we're in a sense talking about freedom from the shackles of the institution of slavery, whether it would be everything that slaves were bidden to do, being in shackles, brought here in bondage and all of that. Of course, you have that kind of physical freedom. But for me, one reason for the celebration of the notice of emancipation that happened with Juneteenth, because of that deferred announcement to those Texans, is a kind of creative emancipation as a result of being a free of expression that slaves had after emancipation that they just simply did not have during the period of slavery. That helped as much as anything to allow the slave to realize and to put into action much of his thoughts, and of course the creative side, the expressive side, the truly humane aspects of his thoughts for freedom. And we see that, we see that in the music. One of the things in my hometown, what's most important is blues. And blues serves as the anchor for R&B, for gospel, for jazz. Virtually all of the African-American rooted musical practices. And in a sense, that tradition comes largely because of emancipation. Because one of the things that you notice in the, particularly after emancipation, musically, with respect to the practices of slaves, they were then freer to become more expressive. They could do things, they could say things, they could act out things that they simply were not allowed to do during slavery. You got to look at minstrelsy as a kind of stage, both literally and figuratively, for the expression of creative ideas. And though much of how they did it, we may look, as to be demeaning, condescending, indeed, actually racist, the fact of the matter is it was about creative expression that over time they were able to tailor and to refine and to package in a way that's gone all over the world today. That still continues to manifest itself in 2021. And what the blues as those musical practices that led to the blues, it provided a kind of pathway for secular expression. We use the blues as a road to register some of our innermost thoughts. We can talk about the enemy. We can talk about the conditions of life. We can bitch and complain. We can celebrate. We can make love. We can mourn. Hey, listen, we can do it all. I mean, what is more, humanity itself is about human expression. And I would argue that Black music is the model, the best platform for expression of humanity, of what human condition is really all about. So, I mean, we could take this in a number of different directions, but I'm Ted McDaniel. I'm here in Columbus, Ohio. I accepted a professorship here at the invitation of Ohio State University back in 1981.
Wow.
So I'm still a youngster.
Definitely.
I was brought here to be the first specialist in African American music in the School of Music. I wasn't the first one hired to do that, but I was the first one to get tenure doing that. So
congratulations.
I've been around for a number of years. I was a long time head of the Jazz Studies Department, and also hold a joint professorship, and had the opportunity to, for a little better than 8 years, to serve as the chair of what was then called the Department of Black Studies, which is now the Department of African American African Studies. So culture, culture is nothing more than everything that involves humanity and the expression of life and living. That's what culture is. And music is a centerpiece, So.
Awesome. Well, listen, I told you, I can't do these introductions. And I hope y'all understand why I can't do those introductions. It couldn't have been done any better than that, right? So Dr. Lomax set it up and Dr. McDaniel finished it off for us, right? So that's how it works. So Dr. McDaniel, so pleasure to have you here on the show, ColumbusBlack.com's Wellness Wednesday Lunch and Learn. So we're hoping that people are sitting back, having lunch and learning, because you and Brother Lomax are doing what we call dropping gems. So when you see me do this, that's because of all the knowledge that you all are dropping. And those are some heavy, powerful gems. So I appreciate you going through the intro and the backdrop to bring us up to speed so we understand the foundation and understand that creative expression, that human expression, and obviously through music. So with that being said, one of the things that we're focused on is this upcoming Friday, right? You all are doing a show, and you all are going to be sharing some information. And then obviously we have Juneteenth on Saturdays. Juneteenth events going on all over the country. We're excited. So I want to talk about the relation, right, between Black Music Month, Juneteenth, and some of the historic precedents that you've already mentioned, how it comes full circle tied to Juneteenth. So if you could give us any tidbits, both of you, in relation to what we may hear a little bit of this upcoming weekend on the upcoming show, that would be great, because we want them to get a little bit, not everything, because we want them to actually join the event, which will be, I think, a little bit more engaging with music and all that good stuff. But if you all can give us a little bit of insight, that would be great.
Okay, well, I'll take the first solo spot here for a moment and let my dear brother, wrap it up. But I pretty much look at Juneteenth really like I look at Black History Month. It just gives us an opportunity to put on the calendar a mark that gives us reason to pause and to reflect at a typical, usual time every year. Now, having said that, as I've always said about Black History Month, and I'll say the same thing about Juneteenth, it doesn't mean we have to wait to those particular times, to do what we do in February and in June. It's like a birthday. When our birthday comes, we celebrate. However, we should be celebrating as often as we can. So with respect to music, I mean, I'm happy that somebody made it possible that Black music has a month, but as far as Mark Lomax and Ted McDaniel are concerned, it's 12 months out of the year, brother.
That's right. That's right.
I don't have any problem pausing in February for Black History Month, but I tell anybody who invites me to do something, I'm available all those other times as well, but I understand how life is, and we all have to live with rules and guidelines and policies, so, but hey, the connection is there is so much, so many profound accomplishments of Black music makers and music coming out of the powerful expression of our most sacred, not sacred in a religious sense, but sacred in a sense of import that comes from the Black creative artistic mind, that we can celebrate it any and all times. And it's available to nourish the souls of all. There is no question. I've been fortunate enough to have done some traveling all over the world. Yeah. And I remember when I went to Moscow, Russia, back in the mid-90s, to be taken to a jazz club in Moscow.
Okay.
Not too far from the Kremlin, I might add.
Interesting.
And at the jazz club, and my guide made certain that I met the owner, and they had a Russian jazz band. They did 2 sets that night, and what knocked me out, all Russian musicians and the entire 2 sets were dedicated to the music of Miles Davis.
Wow.
Okay, so they did everything from the Miles Coltrane band of the 1950s, you know, arguably maybe the greatest kind of modern jazz quintet, you know, picking up on the Dizzy Bird collaboration of bebop in the mid 40s,
Wow.
but also extending to the Tony Williams, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Wayne Shorter, second great Miles Davis quintet of the next decade of the 60s. And then when Miles, you know, becoming being the broad-shouldered musical ambassador, you know, when he started taking in this thing that the industry started calling rock and roll, and understanding Jimi Hendrix and what all that was about, incorporating what we now think of jazz rock or fusion. I heard all of that in a Russian jazz club. It blew my mind.
Wow.
That I can't think of a place here in the United States where I could walk into a club and hear 2 entire sets of Miles Davis. You know, it just off the street. Okay, so our music is resonating all around the globe.
There you
I
go.
was in Beijing, China. In the spring of 2014.
Yeah.
And literally a few blocks from Tiananmen Square, we went to a blues club.
In Beijing.
And I walk into a blues club in Red China. And I look up on the walls and I see all these wonderful photographs.
Wow.
Neatly framed of Black blues art. And they're not, unfortunately, there are not a lot of places in the US that you will find that. So my point is, and I will shut up after this, is that, hey, people are paying attention, and they're paying attention all around the globe, and even the racism, even the appropriation, even the exploitation that Black musicians in the music industry have faced for years cannot stop and does not stem the tide and the impact and the import and the influence, because people love this tradition. People love it. So that's the reason why we're celebrating. And every time I'm happy that Juneteenth is just giving, hey, y'all got to listen to what Mark Lomax is telling you, okay? You know, it's giving us an opportunity to celebrate. That's what we're doing. We just celebrate. You know, you invited us to testify this weekend.
That's right.
That's what you asked us to do. And that's why we're here, my brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank
wow.
you.
Heavy all around the globe, y'all. Y'all need to listen to this, right? Went from the foundation and then the validation of it, right?
Yeah.
Proving the impact globally. So with that being said, thank you, Dr. McDaniel, for that. So Mark, you know, it's always interesting when we have all these powerful people on one show and we have to pass that baton. But I know you can handle it, but I'm just saying it's all yours.
Yeah, I sat at this man's feet for years, so it's just an honor to be in conversation, you know.
Yeah.
And to Doc's point, you know, none of that could have happened if emancipation had not happened and helped us turn the page on how our music expressed who we were becoming, right? There's a direct line between the music that we brought from Africa with us and developed throughout the course of slavery to the blues. And there's a direct line from the blues through rhythm and blues, through jazz, through R&B, what it became, through funk, through fusion, to hip hop. And at every stage, and the music's a continuum, right? There are people still right now writing Negro spirituals. There are still people right now writing new blues, and hip hop is our contemporary blues. All of those musics, to Doc's point, are vastly more popular overseas than they are, with the exception of maybe hip hop here in the United States. And even hip hop in the mainstream is a corporate construct. It's not really fundamentally what we're hearing on the radio, the core of what the music is in the underground, right? So the music is still functioning in the way that we talked about it earlier as a manifestation of who we are as human beings. But it's been co-opted in many ways in corporate America to now make money, as Doc was talking about, the appropriation and exploitation. And I think even as we celebrate our, political freedom, we have to remember we have so much work to do. And our music also reminds us of that. Think about, again, Miles Davis, the great example Doc used, the fact that he was able to evolve where he was hearing the music and how he was expressing the music as a means of showing us that even when the game changes, you can still win the game.
Wow.
Right? The rules of engagement now are not necessarily the same rules that Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer were facing and were playing with, but the end goal is the same. Right. And our music, our musicians have helped us see that. In any social movement around the world, often it's the artists who lead the movement. Right. When Charlie Parker said, now's the time, when Sonny Rollins, put out Freedom Suite, when Max Roach said, we insist freedom now, when just recently KRS-One says, here's the music for how we should move beyond the protest. Right. We need to look at our Black artists, our Black musicians, because they're telling us, they're helping us, elevate our game. And that's really, to me, the reflection that I have every year, that Juneteenth gives me the time to just reflect on how am I elevating my game? What am I listening to that's helping me have the energy and the intestinal fortitude, as it were, to not just stay in the game, but win on my own terms. And by extension, win on our terms as a people.
Amen. Amen. Powerful, y'all. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Right? Now listen, y'all are making it really difficult over here, because I do the gem drops, but I'm so in tune to listening to the knowledge that's being shared. And I really hope that everybody, this is what I want to do. We have some people online. This is what I need you all to do. I need you all to hit the share button, right? Everybody needs to hear this message, okay? It is so inspirational, but it's given us the foundation and the knowledge that we need to have, and especially leading into the celebration, right? So yeah, 365 days a year, but the celebration. And this is great context for us to understand the fabric of it, especially tied to our creative expression, our humanitarian components and expression as well. And in the music, we need to give more credit to. Sometimes I think we discredit the impact of the music to a degree. And I think that global perspective helps us understand that when people all over the world have an appreciation for what we're doing and we don't have as much, there's a problem there. We need to close that gap. So with that being said, for this event you all have coming up, right? It's hosted by the Ohio History Connection, right? And the thing is, what do you all expect people to walk away with from this upcoming event? Or what would you want them to walk away with? And what can they expect?
Now, I'll go first and say, one, Doc is a national treasure, Dr. Ted McD, right? Ted McJazz, as his license plate.
Say it right.
And so I just want people locally to understand what we have here in town.
Yeah.
As it relates to the macro narrative of Black music and how it's the soundtrack of our humanity. I really just appreciate the opportunity to discuss exactly how that fits in the narrative, and that hopefully folks will understand that what they're being force fed in the mainstream is not necessarily, the music that is helping push the culture forward in a way that's most healthy, right? James Baldwin said, the American sense of reality is dictated by what Americans are trying to avoid. And most often what America is trying to avoid is the reality of Black humanity, right? And like Doc said, I'm going to quote you literally because I wrote it down. Black music is the best model and platform for the expression of our humanity. Wow. And so if the music is telling the truth, if we're creating in the current context, the way our ancestors did, you know, all through the 19th and 20th centuries that we have recordings for, and there's some scholarship that points out how these folks were, you know, against all odds, you know, being their authentic selves. And in many cases, doing it right in front of the people who would take their lives, but using, you know, techniques like double entendre to talk about boss man or talk about their woman when they really talking about how white folks are treating us, you know. And if we're initiated into that vernacular, then we know what's going on. We know what they're talking about. And the other folks don't, you know. And so now we can be a little more forthcoming with the language.
Right.
And still, you know, a lot of that is being pushed to the margin because it's not dealing with the narrative that the corporate folks, the record companies want, right? Because again, it's bringing up something for America that is seeking to avoid, right? So for me, Black music, as it relates to Juneteenth, means that as that page turned and we began to experience America not as slaves, but not always yet as enfranchised citizens, right? The music has told that story, and America has done everything it could to bury that narrative. You know, so I want folks to walk away and say, what can I go find? Or we'll give them some resources that they can go check out so they can hear the truth of our experience, you know, these last 400 years, 401 years.
Heavy, heavy. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Go ahead, Dr. McDaniel.
Well, let me just say, first of all, ditto to everything that Mark just said. I'm going to just, for a takeaway, I hope that everybody will understand that we can really just look at a contemporary example of my point. When we go to the OJ's tune, there's a message in our music, okay? I mean, when you look at Black music, I don't care if you're talking antebellum, we can go back to spirituals. You can find out the impact, what lessons politically and spiritually that were gained from slaves who were not only brought here in bondage, but who had to understand what Christianity was all about, because certainly one of the primary objectives, goals of the slave was to survive. And in order to survive, you have to develop strategies, you have to have plans, you have to know how to plot, you have to know how to resist, you know, you have to always be engaged, and they use their music to tell their stories. Now, a lot of folks thought some of those old spirituals and other sacred things was just a complete submission to Christian ideology. For some, it probably was, but it was much deeper than that, you know, because ultimately the slave was able to take that messaging and to use Christian ideology even against the slave masters, you know, because you can't really call yourself a Christian and practice slavery. I mean, it's contradictory, you know. So the slave learned this, and we learn how to incorporate these ideas and these practices to be certain that we were in step and that we could fight the war, engage in the struggle in terms that would allow us to continue marching forward, but would also allow us to have to deal with those who were standing in our way. So like Mark said, Dr. Lomax said earlier, you know, we developed, you know, these double entendres and these metaphors and these codes and symbolisms that we understood because it was a part of our strategy. You know, we needed to perpetuate ourselves. We needed to survive. And in order to survive, you have to strategize. And that messaging thing is so much a part of the tradition. The OJs hit it right on the head, man. We didn't know how profound. You know, I used to dance. I grew up. I told you I'm from Memphis. I grew up on R&B, man. I mean, R&B. Oh my goodness. You know, we danced. You know, I come out of the 60s. I graduated from high school in the 60s. I went to Morehouse College in the mid-late 60s. Man, we danced all the time because dancing is nothing more than improvisation that each individual can do. Did we improvise? Listen, the best jazz musicians improvise. Everybody has the capability of expressing themselves. How more human is that? So, hey, listen to the OJs. There's a message in the music. The hip hoppers, oh my goodness, they have shown us, they demonstrated. We wanted to know what was on the mind of these young folks in the last generation. Listen to their music. Listen to their music. What they did was take the covers off. We had been using double entendre and coding and stuff, so people wouldn't understand what we were really saying. The hip hopers said, okay, yeah, that's a part of it. Hey, we're gonna do it this way. Boom. So they started saying, you know what they started saying.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah. You know, they used the language, you know, and that's a part of the tradition. That's the part. Every era has a time. And look at what the youth, what people don't talk about enough during the civil rights movement is there were youth who were heavily involved. I mean, Martin Luther King was a young man. He was assassinated at 39. He didn't even make it to 40. We forget that. He was so profound and had so much meaning in his life. And music was at the center of his life. You know, you look at his speech at the Berlin Jazz Festival, you know, and it was profound. He had a love for music. You know, he had a love for music, and music was a central part of the activities of the movement. Music nourishes and feeds your mind and your soul.
Say it.
And that's what it is. Listen to the OJ's message in our music and apply that. Go back to antebellum. Go back to the screams and field hollers and the cries. Go back to minstrelsy. See what we had to sing about, what we had to laugh about, what we had to joke about. That was a part. That's expressive. That's expression of humanity. That's a message in there. We just have to listen and be able to glean the message. And we have that messaging continuing today through John Coltrane, through Louis Armstrong, through Earth, Wind, and Fire. My goodness gracious. Hey, message in our music. That's what I hope that will be a takeaway. And take advantage of Juneteenth to just, hey, turn the volume up just a little bit so you be sure you hear it this weekend. Okay.
Outstanding. Well, listen, y'all, we're going to get ready to wrap up, but I would have to say, what an amazing lunch and learn. You talking about heavy in less than an hour, right? Y'all got a 50 minutes of full impact, right? Gems being dropped left and right nonstop and all real. Like, it's not something you just can't get. But I'm going to tell you, for those that didn't get it, I want y'all to hit rewind and I want y'all to listen one more time. And there's no way you didn't get something significant and monumental from our guest speakers today. Now, here's the deal. I had mentioned earlier that they have an event coming up this weekend. It's on Saturday. I think I mentioned Friday earlier. It's actually on Saturday. It's from 1 to 2:30 p.m. This event is the Black Music, the Soundtrack of Humanity, hosted by the Ohio History Connection, okay? Doing some amazing things. I need you all to go to the website and check out the Ohio History Connection and see all the great things that are doing. And this is not something that they just focus on now because it's Juneteenth, right? There's a number of things tied to our community that we should be partaking in. So make sure you all check them out as well. You can go to ColumbusBlack.com for more details and information to get your tickets. If you want a discount on your ticket, you can actually email tam.gibbs@columbusblack.com. That's tam.gibbs@columbusblack.com. Let her know you want the discount code, and you can get a discount code for this Saturday's event, okay? But we want everybody to spread the word with your family, your friends. We're going to be boosting this. This is live on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to get it out there. We're going to promote it because everybody needs to see and watch what they have going on this Saturday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. All right. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out. But before we do that, one of the things that I find on every show, gentlemen, is the fact that normally when we get done, somebody says, I meant to say this. I can't believe I was on the show and I didn't say this. If there's any final remarks, anything you wanted to drop or share, would you please do it for us? Mark, we're going to start with you. Let you go ahead and if it's anything, if it's not, no biggie, but if it's anything you want to drop for our fans, please let them know now.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what you said, big bro, Kev, and hope everybody joins us Saturday at 1 for this great conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. And, you can check out the work that we've done at marklomaxii.com, www.marklomaxii.com. We just released a documentary about the 400 piece that we did, and all the music is there. We've got all kind of stuff that can help you celebrate and learn, this Juneteenth. So check it out, marklomaxii.com.
There you go. Y'all heard it multiple times, all right? Want y'all to plug that in, check it out. And then we want you to support Mark and all that he's doing as well, okay? We got to do that. All right, Dr. McDaniel, we're going to let you wrap it up.
Well, I'll just underscore what Mark, check out Mark's very important latest huge epic. That's important. And put it on the shelf right next to Duke Ellington. Okay, understand what Duke was really all about. He told you in a nice way that it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Okay, you got to understand really what that's really all about and enjoy the rich tradition, the rich legacy of profound, creative, thoughtful, productive, meaningful artists who touch our insides,
yes,
and who will continue to uplift and inspire us and make certain that we'll live another day.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Tune in on Saturday. We're gonna have some fun.
I say.
That's right. Y'all can already tell this is gonna be fun on Saturday, so don't miss the fun. All right. We all like the fun. Speaking of that, we'll make sure we get this posted on Mile of Make Your Life Entertaining so everybody can enjoy that event as well. Something that, I'd be remiss if I didn't share this. Mark, you had mentioned KRS-One, and you and I were talking about this not too long ago, and the relativity though, Dr. McDaniel talked about the profoundness, right, of our artists. And KRS-One was dropping knowledge back in the day that was relevant then, that's relevant now. And he continues. And I thought about Marvin Gaye. We were talking about this not too long ago with everything that's going on, right, and how profound his music was back then. And we're dealing with similar matters right now, asking the same question, what's going on? So the music, the profoundness and the depth, the humanitarian piece of it, the creative expression that y'all drop. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Amazing job. I'm honored and pleasure to have you all here. This is historic for us to have this conversation right here on ColumbusBlack.com for our audience and for all our listeners. And the great thing is there's a digital footprint now, and any and everybody can watch, listen, and hear this and learn from it. So thank you all for joining us for ColumbusBlack.com's Wellness Wednesday Lunch and Learn, sponsored by Columbus Makes Art, as well as hosted by the Ohio History Connection. We want to thank both of them for their support and allowing us to do what we do. Make sure you check us out at ColumbusBlack.com, the website, and sign up for our email newsletter. But also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you never miss out on amazing conversations like this. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap up as I always do. In order to be more successful in your future, you need to understand a little bit more about your past. That's the reason why I just had Dr. Mark Lomax and Dr. Ted McDaniel, and we just had a blast. And on that note, y'all, enjoy your afternoon. I'm out. Take care, gentlemen.